In the second part of 9.4, we still used our completing the square method, but in this time we weren't solving equations. We were trying to find the maximum or minimum value by getting vertex form. So let's take a look at number 1. First of all, we can determine if we have a maximum or minimum value right away. If we look at the sign in front of x squared, if it's positive, our graph is going to stay opening up in that U shape, and it will have a minimum value. So I can go ahead and complete that part of the answer for sure. Now, in order to actually find that minimum value, we need to complete the square to get vertex form. We want to start by moving our constant to the other side. Y and 1 are not like terms, so we have to just leave it y plus 1. X squared plus 4x. Now from here, now we can do our completing the square process just like we did in the first part of 9.4. So we're going to do b divided by 2. We're going to square that result. Add 4 to both sides. On the left-hand side, we're going to simplify that to y plus 5. Over on the right side, this is where we need to factor, and we get our square. X is our variable. B divided by 2 is positive 2. Again, if you don't like the shortcut with the factoring, if that confuses you, you can do our factoring process that we just did last unit and what we also did in Chapter 7. Multiply to get 4. In this case, we're also adding to get 4. What will work is 2 and 2. Those are the values that go in the parentheses when we factor, and that would give us x plus 2 squared. Now, we're not solving using square roots like in the first part. Now we want vertex form. To get that, we need to subtract the 5 from both sides. Because the plus 2 is inside the parentheses being squared, we can't subtract the 5 from it. We just have to put the 5 on the end. From here, we're able to pick out our vertex. Adding 2 in the parentheses means we go left 2. Subtracting 5 outside the parentheses means we go down 5. So the vertex, left 2, down 5. And then from the vertex, our minimum value is the y value from the vertex. In our second example, that's where we're dealing with a negative x squared. So when I have a negative x squared, that means my graph is going to be reflected, which means it opens down, and it will have a maximum value. Now from there, our process starts the same. We want to move our constant to the other side. So we have y minus 7 equals negative x squared plus 2x. Now, before I can complete the square, or in other words, before I can do b divided by 2 and continue my process, I have to get a positive x squared. So in order to do that, we factor out a negative 1. And when we factor out, it means we're going to divide by negative 1 and then write it in front of our parentheses. That's our factored form. Positive 2 divided by negative 1, I'm going to have with negative 2x. And now we complete our square for the expression in the parentheses. So that means we have b divided by 2. Then we square our negative 1. Now here's the part that's a little bit different for us. we know at this point that we need to add 1 to complete our square. When we add the 1, however, we're adding it inside the parentheses on the right side. There's a -1 in front of those parentheses. So really, we haven't added +1, we've really added -1. So if I add a -1 on the right, I have to also add the -1 on the left. From there, we can continue on. We end up with y minus 8, -1. Go ahead and factor. X is my variable. B divided by 2 is -1. And then we have our squared. Again, if you want to do the multiply add thing to factor, please go ahead and do so if you do not like the shortcut. We want to add 8 to both sides. Again, I cannot add the 8 to either of the -1s. This -1 is being multiplied by another quantity. This -1 is part of an expression that's being squared. So the 8 just has to go on the end. Now we can pick out our vertex. We're going to go right 1. We're going to go up 8. So my vertex, right 1 is +1, up 8 is +8. My maximum value is the y value of my vertex. So we have a maximum of 8.